You can forget a lot of things, Foster Care Nation, but never forget this. You're listening to Unparalleled Studios.
I signal.
Foster Care Nation, listen up. This is
Foster Care and Unparalleled Journey.
strength for the powerless, courage for the fearful, hope and healing for wounded hearts. Hello and welcome back to Foster Care, an Unparalleled Journey with Jason.
And Amanda.
And today, oh yeah, by the way, guys, you did hear Amanda here. She really is here today for a while.
I'm still alive.
She's probably, I let her go out of the dungeon there and let her have a little freedom for the day. She's going to have to disappear at some point in this episode because she does have to pick up a kid, so don't think anything too awful scary happened to her. We're just chasing kids because we had a night last night. We had a night with a daughter who stayed out at a friend's house and two boys who stayed at grandpa's house. And it was just her and I and the baby. And it was so insane. I mean, I don't know how, if you don't have a half dozen kids in your house, I don't know how you guys sleep without, a certain noise level, because it was a little bit disconcerting to come into a house that was quiet.
It was.
I kept feeling like something bad was happening, and I was just waiting for it to happen. Like, the flames will come through soon, the bang, the boom, the screaming, and it never happened. We just went to bed.
I know.
And slept. It was amazing.
Well, you slept.
Oh, yeah, I slept. You couldn't sleep. It was too quiet.
I kept waiting for the kids.
All right, guys. Well, today we have with us a foster mother and an author. We have Carmen María Navarro here with us today. She has the book Fostering, a Memoir of Courage and Hope. How are you doing today, Carmen María?
Very well. Nice to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, we're excited to talk to you because we like to talk to crazy people sometimes. And by crazy people, I mean foster parents.
Yeah, we're all crazy for taking into this journey.
Yes. And what a journey it is sometimes. Sometimes terrifying, sometimes enjoyable. I mean, we've had baby girl with us now for what? Almost
11 months.
11 months, right? Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, I'll be honest, she's been a joy of a kid to have.
Oh, how nice. It's amazing when you get them so little and you see them grow and change so significantly. No, it's so precious.
Yeah. I mean, it's neat. You never know what 1 week's going to hold to the next. And right now she's at that age where she's babbling, she's crawling, she's standing up, she's trying to take steps. And, it's fun.
And she's not yet 2 years old, and so the terrible twos haven't shown up yet. However, she did just wake up from her nap, I think, or I just heard a noise. I don't know. Amanda's going to go investigate the noise.
Is she mobile?
Not terribly. If we let her out of the crib or the playpen or the play area, she can crawl. She'll definitely crawl, but she hasn't figured out how to climb yet.
Oh, that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yes, when they learn how to climb, you're in trouble because unless you have like a cage with a lid on it, they're just going to get out. That's what they do.
Yes.
And people frown on putting your kids in cages with lids, I'm told. So we don't have any cages. Well, we have a couple cages, but they're just for the dog. Just for the dog kennel at night. And if you look at back far enough on my Instagram, you'll see plenty of pictures of kids in dog kennels. But that's where they like to hang out. They crawl in there with a dog and curl up. I promise that is not what I'm doing just to keep them. They have opposable thumbs. They know how to get out of that cage.
That's amazing. We have a 2-year-old right now that is giving us a run for our money. He gets onto everything.
Yes. Our little godson, he comes and spends about 3 evenings a week with us when his parents both work evenings, and 3 nights a week they need somebody to keep an eye on. So he comes in and he's about 2.5, and oh my gosh,
yes.
Like 2.5 with you'd swear this kid just had a couple fat rails of cocaine or something. I'm like, child, I can't keep up with you, and I'm a grown man.
Yes, I think I've lost weight since they arrived and how much I'm running after them.
I know the struggle. I know the struggle for sure. Oh man. So what brought you into the foster world? What made you decide you wanted to be a foster parent?
Yeah, so it's so interesting. Well, since I was a teenager, we had to do volunteering for school to graduate. And my best friends and I, we volunteer in a mental health institute, and they had a whole pavilion of children that were had been abandoned and had a significant either mental health issues or physical disabilities. So that's when I started realizing that, and this was back in Peru, that there were so many kids that needed homes. And then when I came to the US and I met my husband, I always wanted to adopt a kid. And then he said, "Have you heard about fostering? Like, I want to foster." And I'm like, I had no idea what fostering was. So then through the years, I became more aware, and that's where the curiosity, one thing led to another, and here we are, many years later, a bunch of kids later, and we are full-time foster parents, in addition
So
to having bio kids.
so how old were you when you came to the States?
So I was about 28. I was pretty fortunate to come to study my master's degree, and then I got a job that they sponsored me, and I met my husband. I told him I was looking for someone to give me a green card. No, I'm kidding. It's like, no, I met him, and it was a coincidence. He had 4 kids when I met him, and I fell in love with the kids even before falling in love with him, and then they came as a package deal. So I married them all 5.
Okay, so he brought bonus kids in, right?
He brought bonus kids,
You have
4 of them.
foster kids, and do you guys have biological kids together?
So we had 2 together, so now they're 15 and 10. And then we've had, I think we counted the other day, about 14 foster kids through the years. Yeah, some long term, some short term. And right now we're having 2 little ones who are 7 and 2. They've
Okay.
been with us for a while, but they're on their way to be reunited with their parents. So that's a great thing.
I love it when I meet people who are crazy like me, who, I tell people sometimes, I think I'm every kind of dad you can be. I mean, technically speaking, I'm a bio dad, I'm a stepdad, I'm a foster dad, I'm an adoptive dad. Like, I have all the different titles. If those jobs came with a paycheck, I'd be rich.
Oh, I know. Well, we've never adopted. It's funny because I've always wanted to adopt, but then you see the statistics, no, and you see like 430,000 kids in the system, and only 120,000 of them need to be adopted. But what happens to all the rest? So there are a lot of kids that are not on the route for adoption that need homes. And I know that every kid deserves a home. So that's what we're trying to do, to help as many kids as possible for that, as long as we can.
Yeah, and I will say that we have what our 4 youngest were adopted through the foster system, so we try to take a few kids out of that list, but it's just crazy when we sit back, as Amanda and I have done the same thing you mentioned a few moments ago, to sit down and try and figure out how many kids we've had come through our home. And that's why I tell people it's between 20 and 30 kids.
Yeah.
Because at some point it's a struggle to remember. I think it's just because I'm getting older. My brain's not quite as sharp as it used to be, and I blame that all on most of these kids that have come through and scrambled up my brain a little bit.
Oh my goodness. And sometimes the permanent kids seems like they have so many needs as well.
Oh yeah, yeah. Our kids have had their moments. We've dealt with some mental health issues with our kids. With several of our kids, we've dealt with some addiction issues with some of our kids when they got into the teens. And my goodness, if you people can hear that, I don't know if the listeners can hear that, but we are getting one heck of a rainstorm all of a sudden, and it sounds like it's trying to come through the windows over here. So,
Oh, I didn't know what it was. Yes.
yeah, people, you're just going to have to listen to the rain. I'm sorry, and because the one sound I can't get out is rain, and I can't stop it. I've talked with God, and He doesn't listen to me when I ask Him to fix the weather. Otherwise, it'd be 70 and sunny all day.
Well, it will be like meditation, that background sound.
There you go. There you go. Oh, so you got into foster care, and you guys have fostered, over a dozen kids. I'm curious, what is the biggest lesson you would say that you guys have learned that you didn't like the surprise? Because I think we all expect to come in and I mean, some of the stories you're going to hear are difficult from kids to hear. Some of that kind of stuff, people expect that, but what have they taught you that you did not expect them to teach you?
Yeah, so many lessons, but I think two primary things that I learned that I wasn't expecting is one, that what the book is trying to address, that is the impact that foster care has on the permanent kids in the house. I think as adults and as foster parents, we get trained, we get prepared, we get emotionally there, we think we're ready. But for our permanent kids, they're not. They don't get any training. They don't necessarily know how to react, and they suddenly have to share everything. Have to share their rooms, their toys, their parents' time. So that was a rude awakening on how I did not realize how much this impacted my own permanent kids, and how much unprepared I was and they were. So that was the first big one. And then the second thing is you also hear about the biological parents and that they don't necessarily love the kids or they are bad parents, and that's so not the case. So there are parents that are unprepared to be parents. I think for the most part, the majority of the bio parents love their kids. Sometimes they're unprepared, whatever circumstance it happens. But we've been able to reunify a few kids, and right now, for example, the kids that we have at home, we're having an amazing relationship with their biological parents, and it's just so beautiful how we're partnering. We're co-parenting extremely well, and how we're partnering to support the kids as best as possible.
You know, the dads group that I always mention that I'm in. One of the things that we have a couple different groups in there that meet whose particular goal to talk about is co-parenting, and that's one of those things that, I mean, outside of the fostering world, divorce is real, and it's happened in so many places. And learning to go to co-parent, it's such a difficult skill. And I watch guys over time who come into that journey and then do an amazing job with it eventually, and have a relationship that's got its struggles. Obviously, there's a reason why people are divorced, but they become great co-parents, and everybody works together for the betterment of their children. And I think that's a model that we can look to as foster parents with the kids that we have as a co-parenting strategy.
Yeah, it's amazing, and this bio parents in particular, they're so willing to partner with us. They're always willing to learn. They're always thinking what's best for their kids. And it's just beautiful to see them work their plan and be doing everything that they need to do, and very open to partner with us, which is great.
Oh yeah, we had one young girl stay with us for a while, and I just recently heard from her bio mom who got a hold of me and said, hey, she's been back with me for the last year or so, and she really wants to see you guys, and I double checked with the county workers and all just to make sure everything was kosher and on the up and up, and they said, oh yeah, from what we know, it's all going really well, and so we've talked about trying to set up that play date. Unfortunately, in our life right now, Amanda and I have both been going through some health issues in the recent past, and so for the last couple of weeks, we haven't been doing a whole lot of anything, just trying to deal with our own stuff. But that's that's a relationship that we can we have the opportunity to keep going because we don't get that option very often to do that.
No, we don't. I'm glad she reached out to you, and that at some point you'll be able to see that child. No, it's unfortunate. Sometimes we've had cases in which we don't hear again anything about that child, and it's heartbreaking, no, because that child has a place in our heart, and sometimes that child has called you mom or dad, and you love that particular kid like your own, and then they disappear, and it's a loss, and it's a loss for everyone. It's a loss for them. It's traumatic for them. It's traumatic for us, and the other piece that I did not realize, it's traumatic for my kids as well, when they had a friend or they had a sibling, and then the sibling suddenly left.
Oh yeah, I talk about baby Carl sometimes. Baby Carl, his name was not Carl. He had a completely different name. However, when let's see, this has been several years back because our daughter was younger then, and the first time she saw him, she said, he looks like a little old man. He was a baby. He was a newborn when we first got him. So he looks like a little old man. He looks like his name should be like Carl or something. And it kind of made everybody laugh. And then he was affectionately known forever and after as Carl, baby Carl. And so when I talk about Carl, all privacy stuff's being taken care of there. But when Carl was a newborn when he came to us, he was born his mother was incarcerated. And so when he was born, he came to stay with us for his first year of life. And it was just before his first birthday that he had some family members who had some other stuff going on in their life that nothing, of their fault, just some other things going on that they were finally got it all taken care of, and they were able to take him back in. And when Carl left us, I'll never forget, we had been doing regular visits with the Bio family, and the little food place that we would stop a lot of times. We would meet her there, and they would do visits, and we would sit and all that good stuff. That's where we met to take him back, and where they took him home with them for the last time. And when they did, I had, let's see, that was probably almost 10 years ago. So Austin, one of my older sons, he was probably about 11 years old, and an 11-year-old boy, he was so upset. It hurt him so bad to watch this all happen.
Oh.
He was outside of the car. He was crying and ended up throwing up. He was crying so hard. And it was this big thing. And everybody in the house was so strongly affected because Carl was, just so you know, almost the happiest baby I've ever met.
Oh.
My little guy I have now, he edged him out just by a little bit on the happiness scale. But Carl was just like this little spot of joy. At the time, our oldest son was probably 13 years old. And a 13-year-old boy, he'd come home from school, and he would look at whoever was holding Carl, and he'd smile and say, "Give me the baby. I want to hold the baby." How many 13-year-old boys do you know want to hold a baby, right?
None.
Right. So Carl was like this spot of light. He was just the happiest child you could ever ask for. And so when he left, it left such a hole in our home, to the point where I couldn't buy a smile in my house for $1,000. And so I eventually, we just picked everything up. I had a 3-day weekend coming up. I said, we have a few dollars in the bank. We're going to take a trip. And we drove down to, I think, Memphis that time, and spent a 3-day weekend down in Memphis just to get out of the house, because toys are everywhere, every evidence of the baby is in the house still.
Yeah.
And so we had to get out, and that's how much it affected our family. We needed to take not just a mental break, but a full physical break, to step away from everything for a moment, just to be able to kind of go be us for a minute and breathe.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I completely understand. We try to take moments in between placements and some moments have been long. I mean, we've been without kids in some case for a few years. And the prior one, the one the book is about, a girl named Lucy, and in that case, she affected me in so many ways emotionally, and then my youngest child for different reasons. And we had to take a 6-month break, but also leave town. We took a trip, and then came back, and then counseling. I mean, it's a whole process to recover from, in some cases, from the grief, and in some cases from just the impact alone.
Oh yeah, because you're dealing with kids who come with trauma.
Yes.
And I don't think a lot of times we really give that enough credence, the level of trauma that's coming into your home that you have to learn to help work through.
Yeah. And and there's such a thing as secondary trauma that I did not realize existed, that it happens to social workers, for example, who are seeing the damage firsthand. I bet you a lot of foster parents have secondary trauma from what we hear that has happened to the kids, from what we see that has happened to the kids. And then I think there's also not secondary, but primary trauma, the things that we've experienced with sometimes the behaviors that the kids have due to their trauma. So yeah, it's real.
Absolutely. You know, that one of the things that, that people don't realize is that some of the stuff these kids come to us with are some really difficult things. If you had a kid who has oppositional defiance disorder, ODD, now for some people, they're really good with certain things. For me, I am not good with ODD. That's a challenge for me. And I know that. because we met one particular little guy who taught me that. I learned that no matter what anybody says, I am not as wise, patient, kind, or great of a human as I thought I was before I met that one. Reactive attachment. That's another one that
Oh,
oh my goodness, that one can come with some real scary stuff. And,
yes.
Amanda and I, we have our own therapist. We meet with him regularly, at least once a month. And if you're a foster parent and you don't have a therapist, what are you doing? Go do
Uh,
that.
yeah, 100%. I don't think I now have joined a therapist. Oh, she's amazing, Kathleen Beers. She's really, really good. And she created this group of foster moms, and we do Marco Polo. So I mean, I cannot survive if it's not for them. Because every issue that we have, and we share and we give each other advice, and we all come from different places, religious, not religious, younger, older, different age groups. And just the experience and the support group has been unbelievable. So, therapist and support group.
Oh yeah, and anybody who doesn't know what Marco Polo is, I just recently stumbled across this app. It's such a cool little app where you can just do it individually, send a message to somebody, or you can set up groups where you do a quick little video, think like your Instagram story or something. But you can just do a quick little. It's a record button, and you can just rant and rave like you won't believe what I just dealt with, or
Yes.
something big that just happened, some joy that you want to share with people, and just to have that support and connection with people around you. And
Yes.
it's a neat little app because people can respond to you. They can watch your message when they have time and respond when they have time, and it's just a real cool thing that I've seen.
Yes, and it's been a great tool also to share videos with the bio parents of the kids. So yes.
Yeah, it's a great connection tool. So if Marco Polo hears this and you guys want to sponsor us or something, feel free. I'm always looking for somebody to help cover the cost of this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
It's
Because fostering is not cheap.
No, it's not. And for the people who talk about foster parents who do it for the money, the thing is that there are foster parents who do it for the money. And if you do it in a particular way, you can make money that way. You can try and get a kid rated up real high and get some sort of extra money because this kid is rated for this, that, or the other thing. But the vast majority of us, we're not worried about trying to rate kids a certain way. And I don't know about, let's see, where are you located at again?
In Modesto, California.
Okay, so I don't know what California has as far as their reimbursement rate for foster kids. Here in Missouri, we are the second lowest paid state, in the nation. And so we receive roughly $236 a month to raise a kid.
Oh, wow, that's very low. We receive about $1,000 a month per child. Also, cost of living in California is I bet you different than Missouri, but yes,
Oh, yes.
it doesn't. Yes, yes, it is. It most of the time we put money from our own pockets to cover the cost. I mean,
Exactly.
from like summer camps, like $200 per week, half a day, for example. Like that doesn't that doesn't cover much.
Yes, yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
or diapers or whatever. My youngest little one is allergic to all the diapers that exist. So
yeah, and so, if you're doing it right, you're going to lose a little bit of money in the whole process. That's just the way it works. I mean, we try and do all the things we can to make that make more sense, with having, well, our older boys are out of the house now, but they were attempting to eat me out of house at home for a little while. And that was the thing, like just keeping food and, for everybody. That was, so we actually just went and got, well, I affectionately named our newest addition to the house Wilbur because, he showed up in package form and nicely frozen and, and ready to go in the freezer. So we buy our meat in bulk where we can because you get such a better price. And we're always trying to find ways to do it to where we can stretch the money further, but it's not a money-making
no.
venture if you plan on taking care of kids the proper way.
Yes, exactly. And luckily here we also work through an agency, and our agency is very thorough. So they make sure they almost I'm not saying they audit you because they're super kind, but they make sure that the kid is well taken care of, and we're supporting the kid with the stipend that we get. So yes, you're closer to Chicago. When we did fostering in Chicago years ago, it was $10 a day.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's a much closer price range there.
Yeah.
And what part of California is that in now? I
Uh,
don't know my geography very well.
yeah, no worries. This is the Central Valley, and it's north 2 hours east of San Francisco.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Let's see. Um, yeah, I'm trying to think. Monterey. That's where it was. I was in Monterey for a little while.
Oh, it's beautiful. Monterey is beautiful. Yeah, we're 2.5 hours away from Monterey, more or less.
Okay. So if you go to Monterey and look for the little military base up there, the Presidio at Monterey,
Yeah.
that I was stationed out there for a little while, and oh, it was gorgeous and it was wonderful. And a cup of coffee would cost you $5, and that was back in 1990 something.
Yeah. Yeah, cost of living is so there's some other ways that we need to look at savings, but yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. But that's one of those things. That even whether we're talking about foster kids, bio kids, because we've had bio kids, we've and foster kids, and on all that through this entire journey, pretty much. And so, like, we have to pay attention to our finances to give kids, be as equitable as we can across the board.
That's so important, being equitable. And the most difficult thing on being equitable is that the kids that come with trauma normally need something else from us, and it doesn't feel equitable for the permanent kids.
I was recently talking with one of my older boys, and they're old enough, they're out of the house, and the one's been off to the military already, and the other one he's off on his own and got a job and living out in the world and all that stuff. So they're a little bit older and have some more perspective now. But I think it was Austin who told me, he said, back when we were fostering and I was younger, because we had talked about this before we did anything. We talked and they were totally on board with it. But as we all know, with kids, their mindset changes about every 35 seconds. And, he said, me and CJ, we kind of felt like maybe we just weren't enough for you guys. And that's why you brought in other kids.
Oh, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that?
That was one that cuts a little bit, because I've always, like, Dad has been well, when I met Amanda many years ago, she already had CJ. His bio dad bounced when he was very, very young. And then we had Austin, and really quickly after we met, and then her younger sister, half sister, ended up coming to stay with us because they shared a mom, but she's always dealt with some addiction issues, and she lived in our house and called us mom and dad, and that was our little family of three. And Dad was always one of my identities. My primary identity, as a matter of fact. You can ask my boss. They get very, very aggravated with me when they want me to work an extra day, and I say, no, I don't work extra days. I give you full 60 hours a week already in 5 days. I am not giving you a 6th day. Those days are mine. I don't come here just to make money so that I can support my family I'm not the financial source for my family. That's not my only role. I'm a dad. I have people at home that I actually like, I care about. My wife and my kids, and I want to spend time with them, and I'm not going to spend more time with you just because you guys can't figure out how to keep staffing at a level to make it make sense for you. That's not my job to fix that for you.
No,
This is
good
what
for
I do.
you.
And that's part of my identity. And so when he says that to me, it's like, is there something I could have done differently?
Yeah.
Make him see that differently. And honestly, I don't think there is, because let's be honest, when we're talking about a 13, 14-year-old kid, maybe, their mind is not what we would call fully formed yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, some of the things they believe don't make sense.
Yeah.
But I understand that they think it and they feel it. It's a real feeling. It's a real thing that they're dealing with.
Yeah, it is. That's actually the main storyline through the book is about how I've learned about that impact that I had on my bio kids and that foster care had on the bio kids. And I'll remember a story from one of the first chapters that we had a kid. His fictional name is Danny, and how amazing and how much he got along with all our kids. And then when he left, I was so concerned about my grief that I didn't realize the grief that my son will have. And they were siblings, and I did not I really did not think about that and how selfish of me. And then another one, also in one of the first, that was our first kid. Um, his fictional name is Andy, and he came as they come sometimes with nothing, no, with your plastic bag and almost nothing in there, and he had no shoes, and the shoes that he was wearing, his feet were like his toes were crawling outside the shoes, and I just grabbed a pair of my kids' shoes and gave it to him, and my son was like, he's wearing my stuff, like my shoes, my pajama, and it's like, yeah, but remember we said we were going to share. And my son, who was, I think, 6 at the time, said, yeah, but you should have asked me. I'm okay, but you should have asked me. And that was mind blowing. And it's like, it's so obvious. They're little ones, but they have feelings and they have thoughts, and we should respect them as well.
Yeah, I grew up in a house, and please don't anybody think that this is me talking against my parents, because it's not. But my dad, he had this idea that his idea was that he was a benevolent dictator. And like, look, I give you things because I want to, but at the end of the day, I'm the one in charge here, and never forget that. And to some level, yeah, there's some of that needs to be in there, because I'm responsible for a lot of stuff that you're not going to get. But at the same time, realizing that when you do stuff like that, man, it takes away a part of that kid's things that they feel are theirs, and you're truly affecting them in ways that you don't think they are.
Yeah.
Especially when, like, these are your old shoes. We'll get another pair. It's not a big
Yeah.
deal. To me, it's
Yeah.
not a big deal.
To me, it wasn't, but apparently it was. And it was a great lesson.
Oh yeah, yeah, because you never know if those are the shoes that he won the important race in, whatever it is. They're the cool shoes that had a picture of pick your action figure here on, or something like that. But it all has such different effects on these kids, because they
Yeah.
come to it with a whole different perspective, a different worldview than we do.
Yeah, yeah. I interview another kid in the book from another family who also had a very tough situation in with a kinship placement. And when I asked him, did you ever tell your mom or your dad how you were feeling? And he said, no, I couldn't. I didn't feel that that it was fair because the other child had so many issues that I felt it was unfair if I complain about it. So no, I just stayed quiet and I prefer not to share anything. And we I didn't realize how invisible he felt and how unheard he will never share anything with his parents.
Well, and I don't know about your culture and where you come from, what your parents were. I know in my family of origin, emotional intelligence was not a real strong point, I guess you would say. My mom had her own struggles with life. My dad was a police officer. So, talk about compassion fatigue, somebody who deals with the dregs of society in their worst moment
Wow.
every day. So he was coming home from work every day, putting away all the stuff he just dealt with. And as an adult, we talked about a lot of the stuff that he'd seen. He'd walk into a house where a kid is black and blue from head to toe, and he's got to deal with a man who just beat a 7-year-old boy to just almost unconscious. And that's what he deals with that. And then 2 hours later, he comes home to his family. And
Wow.
so emotionally speaking, he was not a very emotionally open human. And I
He had
understand
to,
why.
poor thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nothing against him, but I had a lot of that in my own experience. And I wasn't a terribly emotionally open person because it wasn't modeled for me for obvious reasons. And so I've had to learn how to go back through some of that stuff and give that to my kids in the best way I can understand how.
Yeah. Well, my culture is probably different than what my parents are. I'm from Peru, and it's you normally grew up in a very Christian, Catholic type of way in the country, and very patriarchal. And but my parents, my dad is the epitome of love and generosity, and he's the sweetest guy. And my mom is also super generous, much more strong and rational. So emotionally, I think the roles were a little bit reverted than what they normally are. My dad will cry with every single the Olympics, someone wins, he cried. So, very expressive on his feelings, and that's how I am.
And that's something I've had to learn. Several years back, I remember, because our the oldest two kids that we adopted from the foster system, they were with us when our oldest daughter went through her journey with a really nasty disease and eventually passed. And as we were talking through some of that afterwards, my daughter says to my wife, she related to me later, she said, Janiyah says, I've never seen Dad cry. And I'm thinking, yeah, probably not.
Oh,
Most people haven't seen that.
I'm sorry.
Because
how are you right now? I feel you pour your heart with this podcast a lot of times.
I have learned over the years that I have to embrace some of the emotion of life. And so I do now approach that a whole lot differently. I still and it goes back to a lot of stuff in my own childhood experience. I was not raised in an emotionally expressive home. And so I don't express emotion a whole lot, except for anger and rage. I've got that one down. Like, I can do anger and rage in a heartbeat. I'm the big, hairy, scary guy with a big black beard. And so if I put on a mean, hate me face, and I can control a lot of situations that way. And I've learned to use that one. But other than that, most of them are fairly repressed emotions that I have to take the time to go back through later. And I spend a lot of, my mornings, my early mornings, because I get up at 2:00 in the morning, because I have to be at work at 4. And
Wow.
I sit at this desk right here and spend some time in prayer and meditation and journaling and Bible reading. And that's a time for me to dig into my personal emotional life a lot deeper. And it's been a great journey for me because I didn't know how to do that for a lot of years.
Wow.
And when our older kids were younger and we had just started fostering, my older boys did not know a dad who understood emotion, period. I did not. It was a language I did not speak. It's like dropping me in China and thinking I'm going to get along. I can get along in Korean a little bit. I've forgotten most of what I learned back in the day, but if you put me in China, I'm lost. I don't even know how to ask for a bathroom in China, or I'm in trouble. And that was my journey with emotions, really. It was a place that I did not really fully understand, and I didn't have the skill set to give that to my kids, years ago.
Wow. And do you think now I hear you give advice and you mentor other men? How is your mentorship in regards to showing emotion?
I have found that more times than not, through the dad's group, I meet a lot of guys who are maybe in a hard spot. They're dealing with some stuff that maybe I've dealt with. I had a guy that I met in there whose daughter was really sick, and she had a terminal diagnosis. I have another friend of mine who's in that particular group right now, his daughter's a little over a year old, and I forget the name. It was one of those nice technical names for some sort of weird, what would you call it, like a genetic condition that she was born with. And the doctors told him, you should expect to bury your daughter by her 5th birthday.
Oh my goodness.
And
Devastating.
he and I have had some deep, hard conversations because I've held my child's casket. I know what that feels like. I have been through that. I've walked through those particular fires of hell. And so, I can have those conversations with him. And I find it's interesting. It's almost like it's my opportunity sometimes to understand and process some of that emotion that I really don't think I processed at that time.
Wow.
I know I didn't, because I did like a lot of guys do. And I found methods to numb and to get away from, for me, it was whiskey. It was, and I talk about this. I only had one drink a night. It was a 750 milliliter drink of whiskey, and the glass was shaped a lot like a bottle, but I jumped off into the alcohol world because, it was the only way I could numb all the emotions. And now, I find when I mentor some of these guys through some of these hard things, it allows me to reprocess some of these emotions in a healthier way, because from a distance, I can see what we walk through. I can see, yes, it's tragic. Yes, it's sad. No, I would never have picked this route, but I can see some of the beauty that's come from it as well at this point.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm sorry about your child.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a horrible time for us, but
Yeah.
but when my daughter mentioned that she had never seen me cry, and it kind of hit me because I thought, yeah,
Yeah.
through that process, I think there was probably only a couple, 2 or 3 times that I did, really express emotion or cry, and
Yeah.
I don't think anybody saw it. To the point, even Amanda,
Wow.
who she's already gone, she ran off to go pick up a kid, but she said one day to me, because she is a very emotional and expressive person. If she has an emotion, you know what it is. She doesn't hide those, and she said one to me, it's like you don't even care sometimes.
Wow.
And that hit me, because I'm like, no, you don't read the way that I write. You can't understand the language that I speak, and I get that because I don't speak it very loudly. My emotional language was very, very difficult for people to see because it was hidden a lot. And so when we bring in some of these kids who have these hard things, when we're talking to our bio kids about things that they're dealing with as we walk this journey, I've had to learn to take the time to stop, pay close attention to what I see,
Yeah.
and respond to that.
Yeah. Wow. It's interesting because I feel that that everything that we've gone through as foster parents and just generally in life, it is to me it makes no sense not to share it because it could help others. And and that's what I feel you do in your podcast. You share your stories, you share other stories, and that way people can identify and can feel less alone and can acknowledge that that is something maybe doesn't happen to everyone, but it's okay and it's normal.
Yeah, I mean, if you've never had a kid in your home with reactive attachment disorder, you need somebody to tell you you're not crazy.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to tell you that one makes you feel like you're crazy somewhere along that journey.
Yeah.
And then finding some of the skill sets to deal with this stuff. I don't know if you've ever heard of a guy by the name of Chris Voss.
No.
Chris has a book. It's called Never Split the Difference.
Okay.
It was written to business professionals, which you would not think would be very appropriate for parenting kids. But Chris was the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI's international kidnapping team.
Wow.
He interesting dude, like really interesting guy. And in his book, he writes the book aimed at business professionals, and he uses skill sets he learned in literally negotiating with terrorists. And if you have a 2-year-old in your house, you negotiate with terrorists.
That is true. I need to get that book.
It is 100% true. And he there's some skill sets he teaches in there, things like labeling. And I swear, he says this stuff, and I tried it out, and I'm like, okay, let's see how this works. Labeling an emotion. When I see one of my little guys, when Turtle comes in the room and he looks, when he's angry, he's angry. He does not hide anger very well. And so when he comes in and he looks angry, I look at him and dude, you seem like you're angry. And just let that set. Let the label set. Let him, and he'll look at you. And if he's not angry, if he's sad, he's going to correct me. I'm not angry, Dad. I'm just really sad right now. Tell me about that. What's causing the sadness in you? And it just opens up room for a conversation. And as you learn to have those conversations with kids, that will tell you things that you would never have gotten out of them any other way in the traditional, like, what are you mad about question that I would have asked in the past.
Wow. I need to read that book.
Yeah, he has a handful of skills in there that he teaches, and they're so very useful. And I'm not even going to lie. Recently, Amanda's she was coming home from church, and some young fellow who I imagine was probably dealing with his TikTok scroll more so than he was paying attention to the stop sign at the end of the exit ramp, and he pulled out in front of her and totaled her car. And fortunately, nobody was hurt. But her Suburban that we drag all the kids around in was hurt enough that they totaled it, and I had to go find a new vehicle. And I'm going to tell you, those same skill sets work great when I'm negotiating car price too.
I'll definitely need to read that book.
Yes, because the price I bought the car for was actually less money to purchase it than what the insurance company was eventually willing to give me.
That's unreal.
Oh yeah, and the price they started trying to give me when they're going to total the car, like I used some of those same skill sets in order to negotiate a better payout on the total, when they totaled the car, and as it turns out, we're going to end up making a couple dollars, a couple $100 maybe, not a whole lot. We're not going to get rich off of it, but it just the skill set. It works in a business world. It worked with the insurance company. It worked with buying a car, and it works with kids.
Oh, I need it
Their
for
trauma.
the kids. I need to high five you for the amazing work.
Oh, it's so amazing how we're all wired basically the same. Yes, we all have our different traumas and whether there's diagnoses or not, but we're humans. And it's amazing how you can use some of this stuff just to make life better for the kids in your home.
Yeah. Oh no, I definitely need to read it. I'm nowhere where I should be, I feel, in this journey of being a better parent.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's not a parenting book. You won't find it in the parenting session, but you realize that this guy, he's talking about negotiating with terrorists, and that's kind of a parenting book.
Well, a teen mom seems to fit that category.
Amen. Yes, because and it changes the way that you approach people as well, because when you're dealing with, whether it's bio kids dealing with stuff, foster kids dealing with stuff, adopted kids dealing with stuff, bio parents who are dealing with things, even caseworkers, because they have their own perspective, and you learn to look at things through the perspective of the people you're talking to. And man, it's that little shift right there allows you to be able to maybe get what a kid needs. It's through some of that we were able to get Turtle into some equine assisted psychotherapy here a while back. And man, that was such a great thing for him. Wow. I wish they had a program that lasted longer than that one did, because I would love to be, but we've run through the entirety of the program, but it was just so helpful for him.
Wow.
But it's just
That's
about
amazing.
Talking to people and learning how to work through all the roadblocks that people have to problems, and go, wait, no, I'm going to approach this from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I'm going to help these kids. And, because honestly, it's whenever you do things like this, sometimes it can look to other people like you're being very manipulative if you explain it to them. But the truth is, the difference between manipulation and mentorship really is all about your intentions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the author should be sponsoring this book for you.
There you go. There you go. I've actually spoken with Chris once. He came to the dad's group that I'm a part of, and he came into the group and we did like a live Zoom call, and I had an opportunity to talk to him a little bit about some of the stuff that he's done. Super great guy, super interesting dude. I think he's from Iowa, but as soon as he talks, you're like, he's from New York. Comes out. He lived a lot in New York. You couldn't hear any Iowa in his voice at all, but he is the typical like New York cop sounding guy, because that's who he was, and just a great dude, and such an interesting fellow. So I always love finding resources like that they can help that we wouldn't hear about otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, what a great time you have in those groups as well, and here I feel.
Yeah, that's kind of my support group,
Yeah.
I lead a couple groups. I'm the leadership team on that group now, and I lead a couple groups, and on Monday mornings we have a call that's it's Raising God's Most Vulnerable Children. It's a call dedicated to dads of neurodivergent kids, because as a foster parent, I'm certain you have experienced a lot of kids with neurodivergence, something that's not what the world would call neurotypical.
Yeah. 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 And also trauma changes the way the brain develops. And so by default, they're just wired a little bit different than what our bio kids.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got, I laugh sometimes, and my little guy, my youngest son, I'll say, the DSM needs to come up with a new diagnosis, because ADHD needs like a plus level or the premium membership. Cause his kid,
VIP.
Yes. ADHD AF or something like that. He is very, very ADHD. And as much as I talked with Eileen Devine here a little while back. That one hasn't gone live, but by the time this episode goes live, you guys should have heard Eileen talk about what she does. And one of the things, she has a group called the Resilience Room, and it's a support group for parents of what you would call neurodivergent kids. It's parents of neurodivergent kids. And she talks about the benefits that these kids can actually get from some of these so-called neurodivergencies or diagnoses, or, this kid has ADHD, this is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And so we're calling it a disorder, But let's be
Okay.
honest, because I was never diagnosed as an ADHD kid, but as an adult, I look back and go, oh yeah,
Oh,
I,
you were?
but I have an amazing ability now. If I wanted to learn something about, I wanted to get into just figuring out how to like smoke a brisket or smoke something. Like I had this weird inkling. So I went on Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace and found a cheap used deal. And then I went to YouTube and everywhere else on the internet, and I went into the rabbit hole. And I came out like 2 weeks later with an incredible amount of information. I am the guy that if you want to know something and I go search it out, I'm going to know everything about it. And that's where that's become my superpower. I have incredibly deep knowledge on things that sometimes are a little bit useless because, let's be honest, I don't always dive into the best rabbit holes. But it's an ability that most people don't have.
Maybe I need to do a diagnosis for me as well now that you're because I feel the same way. Oh, this term I don't know. Like, let me research it a little bit further.
I came across the word the other day, and I'm Google searching the etymology of some what was it, dissonance, the word cognitive dissonance. I'm like, I want to know where this word even comes from, and I went all the way back to like the old French and the Latin and but that's where those skill sets come in. Like, I can go learn so much more about something than your average person has the patience to sit and go dive into. And so when we look at these kids who have these disorders, syndromes, whatever disease, whatever we want to call it, the truth is that there's a real like ability there that
Yeah,
that we don't, the average human doesn't have. This can become their superpower.
that's amazing. It's such a rich perspective to look at it that way. And how do we teach our kids to be able to see those as abilities rather than disabilities?
And that's the secret there, I think, is understanding that this is a special ability, not a
Yeah,
disability.
yeah, yeah. Well, Um, I was actually thinking about the book as well, and I had to learn so much from terminology and uh, and just everything that these kids go through to write the book. My editor was very much into research. He needs to be not only your story but informational. So I dug into some deep holes on everything related to trauma and the aspects when kids age out of foster care and everything that is related to. But yes, deep research there.
Yeah, and the beauty of that is, that was useful for a book, and you went through that process. And how many people can pick up that book now and go learn something from it? And your ability to take that and just make the world a better place because you went through some stuff that I'm just going to go ahead and assume you probably had some hard moments that led to the writing of that book, right?
100%. It started me journaling like you did with all my deep feelings. And then it became some people need to know and I need to advocate.
Yeah, and what I found is we've been through hard things as human beings. Most humans go through hard things. As foster parents, like we pull on that secondary trauma you're talking about, and we have so much in us. But once we build that ability to see that for what it really is, change our perspective a little bit, and then share those lessons with the world around us, then suddenly we have the pain, we have the hard things in our life, but it's not wasted pain anymore.
It's not wasted. Exactly. Exactly. That's so this book is opening some doors to be able to just have a discussion around, hey, we need to look at all the kids, not only the foster kids, but all the kids involved. And I was talking with my agency this week, and we were after I wrote the book, the head of the agency did a course to explain trauma to the permanent kids in the homes. So to prepare them for what should they expect from the foster kids coming into a home. But then we were thinking, I did an interview to my kids, and I'm like, how was the course, and what did you learn, and what could you improve? And they said, yeah, they told us, I understand trauma and what does to the brain, but I don't know what to do when I see those behaviors. So, and it's so true. When you have a foster child with behaviors, what is the expectation that that kid, or how should they behave? How should they feel? What help do they need? For example, now my youngest child has a code word because he doesn't want to talk about the foster kid or their behaviors, he just talks about the code word. So he will say Pac-Man, and that means he needs help because of an issue with the foster child. So then I go in and pull them away or separate. And that way it's secret. So there's the foster child doesn't realize that it's about them. And then my kid feels safe enough to be talking. So yes, it's imperative to be sharing whatever we're learning so others could benefit from it.
Oh yeah. If you ever hear Amanda say, "Mom says bananas," look out. Things are about to happen. You're going to see a flurry of activity. That's the phrase in our home that our kids chose, and for their particular thing that we were dealing with at the time. And it's so useful. And for anybody listening, if you really want to know what to do about trauma, one of the amazing resources available for free out there on the on YouTube is Miguel. Are you familiar with Karen Purvis?
Yeah, amazing. I just recommended her to a teacher.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything she has is out there on YouTube, and over on that corner of my desk that nobody can see what I'm pointing at, but there's 2 of her books sitting there right now, because her stuff is so useful in that way. It's now that I understand it.
Yeah.
How do I deal with it?
Yes.
How do I deal with a kid who walked into this house with all kinds of trauma? And the tricky thing is that the way that she advocates for dealing with it, a lot of times people go, "Oh, well, you're just letting that kid get away with it."
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's not it. But it looks that way, and you're free to think that.
Yeah. Or not. Maybe we should educate a little bit more.
Yeah, but I'm not going to stand here and argue with you and let you tell me that I'm being a bad parent, because I'm not handling this the way you would. I'm from the Midwest, and let me tell you, here, most of the people who see behaviors pop out will just say, "You need to whoop that kid. That kid ain't been spanked enough." And well, sometimes that may be true with certain kids, because I know a kid or two that probably needed the hard side of dad's hand and the softer backside occasionally. God knows I needed it a few times, but that's not always the case.
No.
When you see the kid having the meltdown in Walmart, that's not just necessarily an indication of a kid who's being an idiot. Yeah. Sometimes a kid who's been through hellacious trauma that you do not understand. And there's a parent there trying to work their way through some trauma with a kid. And that's what's really going on. What you're seeing is the steps of that trust-based relational interventions that Karen talks about so much. And it can do so much for these kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I think what it would be helpful would be, how do we adapt that training for the other children in the house? So how could the other children react? I haven't been able to see training like that. That to me is, for those of us who have permanent kids in the home, that would be so useful.
Oh yeah, because there are times where I'll throw this in on my own kids a little bit. My 15-year-old daughter, it makes her insane when she sees, like, my little guy, like, when he's having a moment. Sometimes he has a moment, and that happens, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Well, you just let him get away with that, blah, blah, blah." And the funny thing is, our oldest son, who is now 24, a year or two ago, he was standing here in this office, and he watched an interaction between me and that particular kid when he was having a meltdown moment. He came in here, and I sat down, take the air out of my little office chair here and get down on his level. And I talked to him nice and slow. And Chris Voss, one of the things he talks about in the book is finding that FM radio DJ voice, the late night FM radio. And so my voice.
Well, you have that.
And I'm intentional about slowing my pace, slowing the words, and being, really intentional about how I talk to him. And it wasn't probably 30 seconds later, he was calmed down. We talked through whatever it was. I said, "All right, well, we worked it out. Here you go, bud. Give me some knuckles." Boom. And he runs off to the other room to play. And my oldest son, who did not see a dad, he didn't grow up with a dad who knew how to do that. He looks at me, he says, "Where the hell was this guy when I was that size?" Because he didn't know about any of that. And even, I've talked with him about a lot of it, and he is in the same shoes some days where he's thinking, "Well, I'm not certain that's the way you should handle it," but I tend not to take parenting advice from anybody who doesn't have kids or anyone who is under the age of 30. And so it's difficult to do that with your bio kids, for sure.
Yes, absolutely. And Are you okay?
Yep. Yeah, Amanda just walked back in, and I was looking at her there because she just got the kids in the house.
Oh, okay, good. Is she joining us?
No, she's taking care of kiddos here for a minute, and actually she's going to come back here for just a moment as we wrap this up today. Yeah, she's here.
Got 3 of them back.
There you go.
Good.
We have all 4 in the house now?
Yes, all 4 in the house. It's raining its butt off outside.
Yeah, we could hear that in here. I think all the listeners get to hear the Missouri rain just trickling down so ever nice and gently, right?
Yes, very gentle.
Sounds like it's trying to come through the windows today. But, well, I appreciate you coming in here today, Carmen Maria, just to tell us your story and talk about your book, because stories like this are what we need to be giving to other people so they can see a fuller picture of this whole thing that we call foster care.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jason and Amanda, for having me here. I think it's such an important matter that there's not enough information about it. So thank you.
No, there's definitely so many things, looking back that we probably would have done differently with our bios starting this journey.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hoping for others to realize. I even had an influencer that read the book and she said, I'm not ready to be a foster parent right now. I'm like, okay, that's good. So it's good that you're going eyes wide open. And if you say yes, because and if you say no, that's okay too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thanks for your time today, and we'll make certain that the book is linked in the bios and are in the podcast show notes and all that, so that anybody who is interested can find it. There'll be a link. I assume your book is on Amazon, right?
The book is in Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, Kobo. So wherever you can find a book, it is there.
Okay, good deal. We'll have a link to it there so people can find it nice and easy, and we will hopefully have a less eventful week and get an opportunity to read through this book ourselves.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And hopefully, yes, I'm crossing fingers for all the health issues.
Well, thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.
Yeah.
Okay, Foster Care Nation. Thank you for listening to Carmen Maria's story. Now take her knowledge and wisdom to heart so you can create love and healing in your family and community. Be sure to come back next week. We have new episodes every Tuesday. If you'd like to share your story as a guest, you can reach us at jason@fostercarenation.com. You can connect with other like-minded people on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/fostercareuj. Don't forget, we have a Patreon account where you can support our mission for as little as $5 a month. It's at patreon.com/fostercarenation. The links to everything are in the show notes in your podcast player or at fostercarenation.com. And as always,
You are so super awesome. I think you guys so cool. Yeah. Thank you for listening. Thanks.
Unparalleled Studios.